Gary, give me a thumbs up if you can hear us. Can you hear us?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Should be ready.
All right, we'll call the Harrison County Commission meeting for Wednesday, June the 3rd to order. If you'll please rise when the invocation is followed by the pledge of allegiance. Dear Lord, I pray that you guide us always, satisfy the needs to be met during this meeting. Strengthen us as we make tough decisions. I pray that we will be like a well-watered garden, like a spring whose waters never fail. I pray that we will be fruitful. Further, please guide us so that this meeting can be productive. Let us be effective and decisive. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
God bless the United States of America, Harrison County, and the state of West Virginia. All right, first order of business, we have a bid opening, hazard abatement, demolition of building and related overall site work. Mr. Parks.
Johnny, if you could just double check to make sure there's no one in the hall for the bid opening. I don't think there is, but if you wouldn't mind checking.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. They've got, I just need to verify that they've got the first information, Mr. President, if you just give me a minute.
All right,
We have two bids.
two bids.
Two bids were received. Both do have the required submittals that they were requested in the, what they called envelope number 1 before you got to the bids themselves.
And may I ask what you're doing?
Verifying that they submitted a contractor's license, drug-free workplace documentation, and the West Virginia purchasing affidavit.
All right,
They both did do that. We have a bid from Green River Group out of Morgantown, West Virginia, and Doran Associates Contracting, Bay City, Michigan.
all right. Thank you. Very sharp. All right, Commissioner Hinkle, tell us what we got there. Patsy, you want to do this one here?
Yeah.
No? And Willie, both of these comply with the qualifications and requirements?
Yes. At this point, they submitted everything that was requested.
And this is for the demolition of the,
Kelly Building and some associated site work.
wow. David, you're first.
Mine's with, Doran Associates, Bay City, Michigan, $1,324,700.
Would you read that
How
again?
much?
$324,700.
$1,324,700.
$700.
There's some shoring that's included in that stays, some site work, so I don't know what I'll have to get with the architectural engineering firm to take a look at that.
All right, the second bid, is from Demolition,
Green River Group out of Morgantown, West Virginia is what the envelope has.
yep, Green River Group. Their bid is $1,007,000. Patsy,
Even?
yeah,
Okay.
Patsy, didn't you, somebody had, the building over, where the bakery was and all that? I thought that was a lot less to, what's that?
This is much more than just demolition. There's shoring that's going on in around the whole site that'll be staying in place once that,
And the demolition phase of that is the small part of the work that's involved in it.
yeah.
The shoring package that gentleman mentioned is the main.
I know how we would do it back on the farm, but.
Yeah, me too.
Well, the shoring pack stays during the construction.
All right.
Is what,
All right, we'll give these, back to you, Mr. Parker, and you and your committee can, go over and make sure we got all the i's dotted and t's crossed. And, then, however you want to do for our award, you want to bring it back or what?
it'll probably be the next meeting at least, yeah.
Okay. All right, so we'll record those two and, then bring it back after the committee's recommendation. All right. Also at 10 o'clock, we have a hearing on the estate of Patricia A. Gunter. Rick, if you'll ask the people for the Gunter.
Johnny, probably yes, need your seat.
The name on it?
Gunter, anybody with the Gunter estate?
Gunner Estate?
Need to try and maintain our 6-foot distancing if we can.
How about I sit right here? Yeah. Let's see, what, you two together? No? Okay, well, just go, you can set up here, if you want, Sam. All right, Mr. Parker, set the stage for us, please.
We have a request or petition filed to revoke and annul the powers of a personal representative and appoint a curator. That's the last copy that I gave you. That was filed, I think Mr. Marsh filed that, if I remember correctly.
That's correct, Mr. Parker.
Okay. There's multiple pages in that that he can review for the commission and outline that. And then also you have a response from Mountain State Law, response in opposition to the petition to revoke and annul the powers of personal representative and appoint a curator. That was filed by Mr. Sam Harold. And then you have a reply that Mr. Marsh filed a reply to the response in opposition to petition to revoke and annul the powers of the personal representative, appoint a curator, and a list of, a witness list that Mr. Marsh provided. So those are the documents you have before you that I've provided. I don't know if there's anything else in the file that I'm unaware of, but not to my knowledge.
All right, Mrs. Marshak is, Malsack is, the administrator.
No, Ms. Joyce Bales is the current personal representative of the estate. Gene Malsack is the petitioner. Fine,
Okay.
sorry, I know you'd like us to sit, so, out of habit.
And I read lips, kind of tough, so,
So,
all right.
yeah,
So the one that's bringing this forward is
Ms. Malsack, and Mr. Marsh is her counsel, that's objecting to the qualification of Joyce Bales.
Okay. And Joyce is your client, right, Sam?
That's correct. Well, I represent the estate. Mr. Krim represents Ms. Boyles individually.
All right. All right, Willie, do any of them need sworn in, or we just go on?
The attorneys would not. Of course, Mr. Krim, if you could identify your full name for the record, if you would.
It's Michael D. Krim, and maybe to short circuit this process a little bit.
All right.
My client is withdrawing her objection to the petition, which I believe entitles the petitioner to at least the removal of Ms. Bales as executor. It's my understanding that pursuant to the will, there is a secondary executor identified, and I don't know if Mr. Harrell, on behalf of the estate, has spoken to that person or not, but with regard to the appointment of a curator, I don't know that that step will be necessary, pending whether the substitute executor is willing to serve in the capacity.
All right. Mr. Parker, do we have documents noting the withdrawal of Ms. Bales?
Not to my knowledge, no. Nothing's been filed yet that I'm aware of.
But Mr. Krim, that's what you're saying, is that she's planning on withdrawing?
She is withdrawing. As her counsel, I am representing that she withdraws her objection to the petition.
All right, let's make that part of the record today. All right,
So at this point, it'd be a matter if there's a secondary or a second individual appointed to the will, whether that person would be willing to serve and whether there's objection to that individual.
all right, Mr. Harrell?
I would represent to the commission that I have spoken to Ms. Gunter's pastor. That would be Paul Boyles. Mr. Boyles, Pastor Boyles, is named as the secondary executor on the will. I spoke with him yesterday. He is on his way to the courthouse now and is willing to qualify as the executor on behalf of the will.
All right. Mr. Marsh?
We would continue to object and request the appointment of a curator, because I think their intention is to simply have Mr. Boyle step in the place of the current executrix to defend this will contest on her behalf. And that's what our position is that there needs to be a completely independent person, because our whole position is that the will itself is the one that creates this conflict of interest, and the curator is to be appointed in that situation. And furthermore, this is the first we've looked at it, so we've been unable to further explore any potential conflicts of interest that exist, specifically changing to this Mr. Boyles. So our whole argument is that if you look at the statute allows a curator to be appointed when there's a will contest, which we have a will contest pending. There's no dispute about that.
That's in circuit court?
That's in circuit court.
Judge McCarthy?
That's correct, Mr. Parker. And the contents of that, whether it's factually true or not, is kind of irrelevant for our current purposes. Our only issue is, does that will contest exist? Have we done it? I don't think there's any dispute that exists. And under the code, I think we're permitted to object to the qualification of any executor when there's a pending will contest. That's kind of what our goal is here.
All right.
I would just note that in Mr. Marsh's own reply, it states that he's asking for a curator to be appointed until such time that a conflict of interest ends. And there is no, as far as I know, there is no conflict with Mr. Boyles. He's the pastor of the decedent. He's not named as a beneficiary in any way, shape, or form, and he hasn't had any involvement with the estate so far. If Mr. Marsh's client would believe that there is some conflict in the future, then he could do that petition appropriately. But unless there is some conflict, then Mr. Boyles, in my opinion, would qualify as executor. Should be able to qualify, and he's named on the will as the secondary in the event that Ms. Boyles can't or is not qualified. I think you have to follow the will at this point until such time as the will is declared invalid.
And again, with the pending litigation with Judge McCarthy, I mean, that, waiting on that before really anything happens. Is that correct, Gus?
That's correct.
And we would also concede the fact that by entry of an order today to the effect of what we're saying, which would be that Ms. Boyles steps down as her responsibilities, Mr. Boyles be able to do that the order say that Ms. Boyles shouldn't do anything with the estate or do anything to harm the estate, dissolve any funds or anything of that nature until such time as it's resolved.
We did forward the information we had to the office of the prosecuting attorney, and I do see Andrea Roberts is dialed in. I don't know if she would have any comment at this point, not to put her on the spot, or if the commission would have any questions. Ms. Roberts, I see you unmuted yourself. Any thoughts on how we should proceed at this point?
I would ask, is Mr. Boyles, is he a husband to the current Joyce Bales?
No, it's Joyce Bales. This is Paul Boyles.
Okay.
Two different
understand
names.
that.
Yeah.
I would tend to agree. I would tend to agree with Mr. Harold that, this shows that Ms. Bales, that she did have a conflict, because we don't know what the circuit court is going to do regarding the two wills in place. But if this is an independent third party who doesn't have any connection or is not going to benefit from either of the wills, I would agree with Mr. Harold on this.
All right. Mr. Marsh?
Well, again, we go back to the statute, allows the county commission to make its decision. If the existence of a will contest, they may and have the power to appoint a curator, which would take this completely away from any question about this, because the will contest itself is questioning who the proper party is to bring this and which will controls. So by appointing a curator, you completely take that out of the matter and appoint a truly neutral third party. Because our position, of course, is that the will itself is null and void because it was never properly done in terms of it's fraudulently induced and all other reasons that you normally bring a will contest. So I think that's part of the purpose of the statute, is to allow the county commission to bring in somebody who has no benefit either way in either will. Because I think the code is clear that the county commission can do that, it has the ability to do that.
However, the petitioner must show some cause for that. And that's what's set forth in my case law that I put forth in my reply. The county commission may, but it's the petitioner's burden to show some cause for that. You can't just allege it. So Mr. Boyles is a pastor. He was Ms. Gunter's pastor prior to her death. He's independent. He is not a beneficiary, and he is volunteering. And I'm sure you all know that administering an estate takes a little bit of work, but he is willing to do this on behalf of the estate independently.
All right. Mr. Krim?
Yeah, I would just remind this commission that it's an extraordinary remedy not to follow the intention of the decedent that's set forth in their will. That should take preeminence over anything that we're talking about today. Ms. Mousak spoke in her will, identified two potential executors, an executrix and an executor, and that's who she wanted to serve, and this commission should give honor and respect to what she wanted to do. West Virginia considers it extraordinary not to do as the testator has sought to do. And as Mr. Harold has said, if Mr. Marsh or his client have some basis, they can come in and challenge his appointment again, but there's no basis for not allowing him to go and qualify pursuant to the terms of the will.
Question that I would have before I open it up for the other two commissioners is, what harm would it do by us going ahead and having Pastor Boyles recognize him if he qualifies?
don't believe, on behalf of the estate, I don't believe there is any.
Frankly, the harm is that my belief is they're gonna bring in Mr. Boyles as basically a attorney in fact for Joyce Bales to defend this will that was improperly done. And by doing that, they're gonna be able to defend themselves using estate assets to defend this will that we believe was fraudulently induced. So it puts us at a disadvantage to challenge this because they're gonna be able to utilize the entirety of the estate assets, if all of them. And if they lose, all well, they're not out anything. And if they win, then they get whatever's remaining. I mean, that's our position here. It's one of the reasons we brought this, is because the inherent unfairness of the matter of challenging will that, is, if it was improper, then they get to defend that, and they have no cost to themselves.
But isn't the court going to make that decision?
The court will ultimately make that decision, that's correct.
So, I mean, there's really no harm up to the point as to what the decision's going to be from the circuit court.
Well, other than they're going to use the estate assets to pay Mr. Harold and Mr. Krim to defend the will, that in the event that we prevail, that money's gone, and we've received no benefit from it.
All right, Mr. Krim.
Yeah, Mr. Watson, I represent Ms. Bales personally. The estate's not going to be paying me to do anything. As is well settled in West Virginia law, the estate has a right to retain counsel to represent the estate because the whole purpose of the estate and its counsel is to protect and preserve the will that's been presented for probate. That's the job. It's absolutely, and nobody in this courtroom is going to tell you that the estate isn't entitled to retain counsel to represent itself in this case. So as far as that argument, it's really a non-argument, and quite frankly, at some point, if Ms. Millsack prevails, then arguably she can ask the court, to have my client, whoever, return those funds. Now, whether the court will do that or not, because there's different issues, but that's also out there as a possibility. Whether he prevails in that argument or not is who knows. But
All right.
that's out there.
Thank you. All right, Patsy, you have any questions of counsels here?
Yeah, I do. We're talking about a will. Do we have a will? Do we have it?
Oh, with us?
It's right here.
Was it notarized and two witnesses?
Yes, Mr. Wilson is out in the hallway. He is the attorney that prepared it along with the witnesses are here. But, well, we weren't gonna call him because Ms. Bales has agreed to dissolve the conflict by withdrawing so that we can have the Pastor Boyles appointed.
And that matter is before the circuit court. Am I correct?
That is correct. I mean, and my position is that I'll take the position here and now for purposes of this hearing only, that the will was executed and everything. I challenge that in the circuit court, but for today's purposes, I think the county commission can assume that that will was done, but we, of course, have challenged that, if that makes sense.
So what you're saying is, I have my will notarized with two witnesses, and somebody else can challenge it?
Yes. Because I have various grounds in the circuit court of why I believe the will was improperly done. I question if the witnesses were there, those sort of things that we're going to have to explore, but that's, I don't think, something we have to decide today. There's various theories on why we assert that the will is improper through the lack of capacity, undue influence, tortious interference, fraud, various other claims. Those are all explored during the circuit court matter.
Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, Andrew, or Ms. Roberts, you can correct me if I'm wrong. For the purposes of our hearing, the assumption is there's a will that was submitted. The will was submitted for probate. It's valid at this point until the circuit court would deem otherwise, but that's an argument for upstairs. The purpose today, of the hearing today, is a matter of, do we proceed, of course, the original petition was to remove Joyce Bays, A's and O's, and she has voluntarily withdrawn. Ms. Roberts or Andrea, would it be proper for the commission to allow Pastor Boyles to qualify, and then if there's objection to that qualification, would that be another hearing for another day?
Yes.
I believe it would, because right now we are here on the qualifications of Joyce Bales and them asking that she be removed. So at this point, since she has voluntarily removed herself, as long as we have that paperwork showing that, then the petition that would be before the county commission today would be moot unless, somebody would then come forward and file an objection to the qualification of Mr. Boyles, and then we would move back and have another hearing. But I would advance that it appears that it is moot today since she is withdrawn.
Pending receipt of that written documentation.
Well, but what I was gonna say was to circumvent that problem, we are not objecting to the petition. We have prepared an order granting the petition to the extent that it removes Ms. Bales. So we don't have, that would circumvent us having to go through another 30-day period, having to file all that paperwork and everything. So we are not objecting to the commission granting this petition to the extent it removes Ms. Bales. That would then open up the opportunity for Pastor Boyles today to go down and get qualified.
Okay. David? All right.
Ron, I have one more question.
Go right ahead, Patsy.
Am I confused in the sense that, do the two witnesses not also have to sign?
Yes.
So we're questioning that there's fraudulence in their signature?
No,
No.
not here today. The validity of that will is not in question before the county commission.
Right.
That's not an issue for us today
Okay,
at all.
okay.
The petition, as I understand it, there was a petition filed to remove Joyce Bays from executor or whatever of the estate. Mr. Harold's represent that the estate has no opposition for the county commission to grant that petition as it relates to that matter. I don't know if there's other claims in the petition, but at least
All right.
to grant that claim in the order, draft order that evidently he's prepared. That, if the commission so acts, and Ms. Roberts, I think, is recommending, as I understand that course of action, is if the commission grants and approves that order, then that allows Pastor Boyles to qualify immediately without another 30-day wait period.
Okay, thank you.
That's the way I understand it.
All right.
Andrea, is there anything that you would see that would create a problem for the county commission, assuming that's the course of action they want to take?
No, I do see that it would speed it along in that, but there would have to be an order being specific as far as how much of the petition is being granted and how much of it is not being granted, because there was other things that were requested in there as far as request made by Mr. Marsh.
Would it be appropriate us to take that order under advisement so you would have a chance to look at it on behalf of the commission, and then they could, assuming with your approval, then they could authorize the president to execute that pending your review?
Yes, that would be appropriate. And are all parties that are there today, are they all in agreement with this part of the order? Or are they not in agreement with an agreed order being entered saying that she is, that the commission is granting that part of it?
She's going to withdraw. So by withdrawing,
She's
now
not
the whole purpose.
She's indicated she's willing to withdraw, but the course of action the commission is approving that part of the petition.
That's correct.
I don't know if Mr. Marsh has objections to that or not, Andrea. I haven't asked him yet, but I am now.
I have objections to the extent that we're not permitted to come back and object to the qualification and basically essentially refile this in direction to the new executor. That's the extent. To the extent that we are essentially saying she can step down, my objection to the qualification is now moot. I don't have any objection to that.
Okay.
Who's the executor right now?
Joyce
Bales.
Bales.
She did that in 2020?
She did that, yes, in January 2nd, 2020, I believe that will was executed.
And Jean?
Mousek,
as being the executor of the estate?
Not in this will. There was a will in October of 2018 that named Ms. Malsack as the primary beneficiary. That's what the dispute is in October of 18, there was a will done that Ms. Malsack and another lady was the beneficiary, the primary beneficiary of the estate. A little less than a year and a half later, a new will was done that named Ms. Bales as the sole, but I believe the sole beneficiary of the estate. So,
And that's what estate are you represent?
we represent the earlier one, the October 2018. We've challenged the later will that's now within the probate process within the county commission. That's been challenged in the county clerk, or the county circuit court.
We have two wills naming two different estates.
Yes.
But you only have one will that's being administered at this point. That is it, that has been accepted by the clerk's office, has been challenged in circuit court
The one from February 6th.
of this year.
2020.
2020, correct. So the only issue before the commission is the current will, the 2020. To the extent that the circuit court would later rule that that will is invalid, then the commission would have to reevaluate on the previous will. But the previous will is a non-issue at this point.
Because one supersedes the other,
Right.
unless the challenge that it's not proper. All right. So, Mr. Parker, why don't you frame a,
One more question.
go ahead, David.
Can the sheriff sit on this till it's settled?
Andrea, if you wouldn't mind, did you hear Commissioner Hinkle's question?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear him.
The question from Commissioner Hinkle was whether the sheriff could serve in the capacity as the administrator or whatever of the estate until such time the circuit court has ruled. I think that's the question.
And I think if the county commission would have granted Mr. Marsh's entire petition and appointed a curator, the sheriff definitely, I would have recommended to be the party to step in to be the curator on the case. But given that now everybody has appeared and they are not objecting to her being removed from the case, I don't know that we get to the curator part today, given that there's another administrator on there and there isn't any allegations in the petition against him. Yes, the
if I
sheriff
may.
could serve as curator.
Go ahead, Mr. Harold.
If I may, Mr. Hinkle, my understanding of the process would be that you would have a curator only if you didn't have an administrator for the estate, an executor. So to the extent that this order is granted, relieving Ms. Bales as executor, then Mr. Boyles would come in and qualify. Once he is qualified, then Mr. Marsh, if Mr. Marsh has an issue with any conflicts, he could file another petition challenging that executor. But you can't make the challenge until the executor is appointed because he doesn't have any duties yet. So that would be the process.
And I would agree with Mr. Harold on that.
Hypothetically, he could walk in today and say, no, I changed my mind.
Hypothetically, he could, but
Yeah.
as soon as this order is entered, Pastor Boyles is willing to swear in and be qualified. And then if Mr. Marsh has an issue, he can challenge Pastor Boyles.
All right, other questions, David? All right,
I think, Ms. Roberts, you would probably agree that would be my recommendation, as I understand it, to proceed with that course of action.
Yes, and I would just ask that the order be specific to say that the parties appeared, that there was no objection, that she advanced to the court that she would be stepping down. I would just ask that that language, make sure that that's all in the order.
I would recommend to the commission that a draft order be prepared for review by the Office of the Prosecuting Attorney. If it meets the Office of the Prosecuting Attorney's, language that Ms. Roberts outlined, and authorizing the president to sign that order.
that sounds like a winner. David, Patsy? Yes, sir. All right, so we have a motion. We have a second. Is there any further discussion? Here,
Joyce, what's the time frame for the order? I believe Mr. Boyles took work off today to come up here and qualify. What's the time frame we're trying to follow? We have an order that she withdraws so that he can go do that, and in fact directs that She can't do anything with the state assets once the order is entered, which preserves the estate. And certainly we can get it to Ms. Roberts, but hate to have Mr. Boyles have to take 2 days off to come up and qualify if he doesn't have to.
Mr. Krim, I would, think that we could get that draft order that we have, to Andrea today.
Yeah, I don't know what Andrea's schedule is or her availability, but, you know, I'm sure we'll look at it as soon as we can. The commission needs adequate time to make sure they're doing a proper process, and if that requires 2 days off, I'm sorry.
All right. Any other, discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Marsh.
Thank you.
If I could ask you just to get that to Andrea.
I'm gonna walk across,
Okay.
take care of it.
All right, thank you.
I've already got it prepared, so I just need to get it to her.
Andrea, Sam's gonna be, dropping that off for you.
Okay, thank you.
Are you in the office or are you at home?
No, I'm in the office. If you want to
Okay.
bring it, we're not letting anybody in the office at the moment, so if you want to bring it to the door, I'll meet you out there.
I understand. I'm walking over right now.
Okay, I will walk out.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yes.
Sam?
10:15, we have, Bill the Clutter, West Milford Lions Club, special funding request, community block party. Mr. Parker.
We have the request, I don't know if, she is, present by Zoom or for the meeting or not, but it's a request for $1,000. They estimate the overall activity to be $1,500. The commission has funded this previously. It's their, community block, party, July the 25th is the time period for that.
All right. Ms. Clutter, are you with us on Zoom? All right, hearing none. What's the pleasure of the, commission? Mr. Parker, I'm assuming all their documents, in their
Yes.
funding request, and, that their previous, funding, they submitted a, final report on that from last year.
Yes, they have.
All right. David? Patsy? All right, we have a motion to approve. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. First item of business is public comment. Do we have any public comment from in here? Hearing none in the courtroom. How about with our Zoom? Do we have any public comment? If you do, unmute yourself and speak up. Pocket of punch. Like that, Dave? They're a pocket of punch. Yeah. All right. Item 2 is consent agenda. What's the pleasure of the commission? Move to approve. Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Payroll change notices. Got a couple here.
You have a resignation from a deputy that really does not require the commission's approval, that the sheriff has submitted that as a courtesy and information for the county commission, but that
All right.
resignation was effective May the 15th,
All right.
unless the sheriff would have any comments or you have any questions for the sheriff.
Hearing none.
Thanks, Dave, or
Part of today's record. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Exonerations, corrective tickets, joint property applications.
You have two.
Kind of hard to,
move to approve.
all right. Further discussion, hearing none. All in favor, say aye. Consolidation of land, segregation of land.
We have none.
You're getting better, Rocky.
Don't worry, we got them coming up.
Uh-oh. All right, item 6 is consider of approval of project fund requisition for the payment of costs associated with the project to be financed from proceeds from Series 2019 bonds issued to Charles Point Economic Development Opportunity Development District, Series 2015 A and B, Series 208A, Northland Bay improvements. Do we have anything, Mr. Parker?
We did have a couple that were submitted yesterday, and Ms. Jones had printed those off. I have not had a chance to review those this morning. So, Mr. President, if it would be all right, we could take care of that later in the meeting, or
All right,
that would be agreeable.
or we can approve it pending staff's review, make sure everything's there.
That's fine too,
Is that fine?
if that's agreeable with the commission.
Is that all right? All right, motion for that effect. All in favor, say aye. Aye? There we go. Item 7 is review and consider a letter from the Supreme Court of Appeals of West Virginia, Family Court Memorandum of Understanding. Mr. Parker?
That's their standard agreement, that they sent out, for renewal. It needs the president's signature, so we can bill the Supreme Court on a monthly basis for the space that they occupy.
What rate of square footage are we getting?
If I remember.
$10 or $12?
Yes, it's still the same rate,
Okay,
that's in here, but I just, the number escapes me at the moment.
that's fine. All right, what's your pleasure? Move to approve. David? Questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right. Item 8 is review and discuss and consider budget revisions for fiscal year end for the general county fund called Severance Vital Service Levy Fund. Mr. Parker?
I provided copies to the commission this morning. The total severance fund is the one that I have on top here. The name is at the top of the form. This is just within the department. It does not, or area, it does not require state approval. But $200,000 from a capital equipment line to the COVID-19 supply line that we've been utilizing for expenditures is that recommendation. I don't know if you want to do them individually or all at once.
Yeah, do them individually, because I want to ask about the 200,000 and the 53,000.
All right. That would be the recommendation for the COLA severance unless there's questions or comments. A motion to
Hearing
approve
none.
would be in order.
Motion to approve cold severance.
All right, we have a motion to approve the cold severance. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Mr. Parker?
Vital service levy is the next one that I have. It's, two areas that I'm moving some funds, around in, from OEM and E91 emergency dispatch, adding some money to overtime, line item, and then $50,000, to split between supplies and equipment, COVID-19 supplies and equipment line item. That's moving out of the new equipment line item. So basically out of an equipment line item to a COVID-19 supply and equipment line item for that area. And then there's courthouse security. I'm moving $10,000 from an equipment line item to wages for part-time. We've had some increased expenditures there. So those are the two areas and the recommendation for the vital service levy, Mr. President.
Mr. Parker, the bottom line for vital service has not changed, and you're just
No.
moving money around in the vital service,
Within those areas, within their departmental areas.
but still probably somewhere down the line, we may have to supplement the vital service levy for some of those areas, maybe security.
Possibly so in the future, yes.
Yeah. All right.
So the 53,000 plus the 200, then, does that cover everything that's been bought for the coronavirus, supply, chain? And will the $100,000 then go back in, or does that include $100,000 that are received from the government?
That does not include, that $100,000 is in a separate fund.
Okay.
The recommending to the commission later in the meeting that we have some expenditures as we review that line item later in the meeting, utilizing that funds for some expenditures we've already purchased and be reimbursing the county for that.
Okay, let me ask you that. If we're going to use that money for things we've already purchased, what's this 253 been used for then?
That has already been charged to that line item. We've not charged anything to that $100,000. There's $100,000 in that, COVID-19 grant fund, that the $100,000 that came from the governor's office in Charleston. If the commission approves the recommendation later on the meeting, we will write a check for $100,000 out of that fund to the county to reimburse these expenditures.
And then of this 253, where will that go? What I'm asking is, are you going to reimburse half of the 200, or are you going to reimburse the whole 53 and then do 147 to the 200?
I will be reimbursing into the coal severance fund.
Okay, so the coal severance will go down to 100,000 then.
The revision will still stay at 200. The net expenditure will go down because it's already been charged to that line item, or will be charged to that line item. We haven't spent all of that money yet. I'm putting additional money there in case there's some expenditures between now and the end of the fiscal year or carryover expenditures.
Okay, let me ask you this, and I'll get off that. Of this $200,000, how much of it are you sandbagging for additional purchasing as opposed to what is already spent?
Right now, we've spent, out of the coal severance, line item, $108,463.53.
So really that 100 then would pretty much pay for that, so then you would have the 200 in full back then, if you don't make any more purchases.
No. Well, as the budget, how that budget works, if the 200,000 budget revision was approved, so around the end of the fiscal year, or if we have an invoice that is dated in June but not processed in July, until
can't hear a thing. Hello, anyone there?
I am.
Who's I? Hello? Can't get anything on this meeting.
Hello.
I can hear it now. This is Greg.
How about now? Can you hear us out there, anybody?
I can hear.
We've had an audio issue and we had to switch, so sorry about that.
Questions on the vital service? None, Patsy. David? We have a motion by the vital. And Mr. Parker?
The general fund, you have two different revisions, one that requires state approval and one that is local. The difference being with the state approval, if you're moving from outside of one department into another department, for example, from contingencies into another department, that requires state approval. Those areas we're adding, the recommendation is to add $33,000 to the county clerk's budget to cover wages for a position that was added outside the normal, when the normal or the regular budget was established, I'm sorry, and some related costs there. Prosecuting attorney's office, the same thing is $23,550. Contingencies, reducing that, moving $70,000 out of that area. Law enforcement, adding $205,000 to new equipment line item And that is, next year, we're gonna be breaking the new equipment out from grant versus other normal, regular purchases from General County. But that includes license plate reader related expenditures, radio grant related expenditures. Most all of that's related to grant funding. That'll be coming back in, or will be coming back in. Service of process is a new vehicle that was purchased, $31,750 there. Reducing the regional jail area by $263,300, moving that to the areas we've discussed. Fire departments, there's a couple of fire departments. For a reason I don't remember, one was shorted by $5,000, and then we had an expenditure carryover for another department. So bringing that money in. And then the last item is $25,000 for items coming into the central garage. Some expenditures associated with materials and supplies, and so that's the state revision.
All right.
Don't know if you want to do it separate from the other.
You want to just lump it in with the general fund?
Okay. The balance of the general fund is within the local approval only required, because we're just moving money within the departmental areas.
All right, so that's already in their existing budget.
Already in the existing budget, it's just moving from one line to another
Line
line.
item.
Yes. The first area is the county commission that you have. The largest is $200,000, increasing just in the general capital outlay from another capital outlay fund. And then the $132,000 is for the building that we're constructing, the maintenance building on out by Parks and Rec and WVU Extension Office. We have one invoice in. I don't know if we'll have others before the end of the year, but that $132,000 is the total project expenditure. I don't figure we'll be expending all that between now and the end of the month. But I wanted to have the ability, if they did finish up, then we could go ahead and issue the checks. Tax office is just moving $1,000 from printing to wages. I talked to Joni Childers yesterday about that, and don't see any problems there. Courthouse moving $20,000 from professional services just to a rent line item, and then $50,000 increase in materials and supplies, and that's $25,000 from other expense and a general outlay. $1,000 from one planning line item to another, from materials and supplies to equipment. Law enforcement is some money within their areas. $10,000 from the DEA wage line item, and then some utility expense moving around, increasing rents and training by $5,000. Then home confinement is $500 from overtime to wages to cover some straight time costs that was incurred. So that's the general county revisions.
Questions?
Two questions. The $20,000 for rent for the courthouse and the $20,000 rent for the law enforcement, or the $5,000 for rent for law enforcement, what is that?
Most likely, a lot of it is associated with cell phone charges or rents for equipment of copiers that we may have had. I'd have to go back and check each individual line item, but that's the two largest expenditure categories coming out of that.
So we rent copiers?
Yes, rental charges on copiers,
Okay.
and then the cell phone charges come out of that line items. And I'd have to see, and then we've rented some maintenance equipment throughout the year.
Okay.
Some additional maintenance equipment that we didn't budget for. And I don't remember how much that added up to.
Okay. That's all
Any other questions, Patsy?
Yes, sir.
David? Hearing none, need a motion to approve the general fund as staff submitted.
Motion approved, please.
All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Next item is, actually, it's just a news release from Secretary of Department of Homeland Security. West Virginia Department of Military Affairs and Public Safety is now the Department of Homeland Security. Was done through Senate Bill 586 and became law on May the 28th of this year. Just need motion to make it part of today's record.
Motion made, please.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Item 10 is to review, discuss, and consider drafting an agreement with the Harrison County Economic Development Corps for development activities and authorizing grant applications for properties owned by the Harrison County Development Authority and leased by the Harrison County Commission, former Elliott Thrasher property, which is in the vicinity of the North Central West Virginia Regional Airport. Mr. Parker, that's, so we're making the Corps the owner?
No, this is, we're not transferring ownership of the property at all. This is just allowing the Economic Development Corporation to act on behalf of the Development Authority and County Commission to work on grants and such, and act as the grant agent.
Still remains.
Yeah, the lead developer on that property.
So the property still remains for legal purposes, the Harrison County Development Authority.
Development Authority is the legal owner right now, and then the County Commission has a lease.
So Amy and them then can market, develop.
Working, yes.
Flat, right.
Okay, let me ask you this, where will that money come from?
Right.
Because they're gonna, no, I mean, the money that they spend to market, the money they spend to match grant money.
The grant, if the grant requires a match, then they'll have to come back to the County Commission or Development Authority for that, if there's anything that would require a match.
Does the Development Authority have any needs?
They have some money that they've had from previous years, but they have no income stream at this point.
So we're gonna pay the Economic Development Authority then to market this for us, really is what we're doing.
No, the Economic Development Corporation would be authorized to submit grants on behalf of the County Commission and Development Authority and coordinate those grants and submit those grants.
What expense is gonna be to the county with it?
I know of no expense to the county at this point. Unless there's a grant that would require that, I know of no expense to the county at this point. Any expense would have to come back for approval.
So we just sent in our first payment, right? For this property. How many more would we go for?
Or yes,
4 more.
yeah, we had a down payment. I forget what that was, but then we have basically a $150,000 to $180,000 annual payment with the first one being made this year.
So let me ask you this, is the economic group, regardless of where they get a grant throughout the Harrison County, do we match that? Or is it just for this?
The Economic Development Corporation would, this agreement, assuming the commission would authorize the drafting of an agreement and signing, would be just specific for this property. Unless somebody would come back and then that agreement would be modified.
All right. Other questions, Patsy?
And that agreement, I mean, it'll have to be drafted yet. There's not even been language put to paper or words put to paper yet. This is just authorizing the starting of that process.
And I know Can I know can you get to me what means the development authority actually has?
For the Development Authority,
Are we allowed to know if they have any dollars?
oh, yes, it's for the Development Authority, it's public information. Yeah.
I'd like to know that, please.
Yeah, I mean, right now, they have no income, I think a small $200 a month related to a project that I think goes through April of 2021. Other than that, they have no income stream other than some funds they have left over from previous fiscal years, but I can get that balance.
So what we have here is the commission's buying this property, the development authority owns it, and the economic development is going to market it and apply for grants.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. And we have a lease agreement in place with the Development Authority. When I say we, the county commission.
It's a pretty good deal.
Other questions? David? All right. Motion to approve and move forward on it. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? All right, item 11 is to discuss and review and consider COVID-19 county block grant requests and/or proposals from various municipalities and the county commission expenditures. Mr. Parker?
Some of this I mentioned previously. I think it was April the 27th. Yes, you have a copy of just the draft letter that was sent to each municipality.
And they were to report, the drop dead date was?
Thursday, May the 28th.
And at that point, you received how many? I see Lumberport,
2. Lumberport and Stonewood, yes. Lumberport submitted, I don't know if they've made all these expenditures. They didn't submit really any backup documentation or a plan. Either one was, it would be acceptable under what we requested. Of course, there's no funding that would be guaranteed until to make sure that it met the eligibility requirements for, as outlined in the letter from the governor. Stonewood outlined, they provided actual expenditures. Their total was just over $650, $650.39. Lumberport's proposal was $7,710. Some may have been made or may not have been made on that expenditure line item. They didn't provide that documentation. And then the county commission so far has, as it relates to the expenditures for the, that would be eligible for the block grant, was just over 108,000. And we do have other expenditures we're going to be looking at getting reimbursed through the CARES grant. The $15,000 that we, the expenditure for the Bi-County Nutritional, and the $15,000 for the Harrison County Board of Education associated with additional cost and food distribution. Those are eligible for, as we understand it, for reimbursement from the CARES Act funding that we can submit. Ms. Sell, Ms. Jones, and Laura Peace, Ms. Peace and I have had a few discussions over the past few days. And so we're looking at that, as well as, then there's, as you gentlemen are aware, there's the, I think it's the BGA grant of $58,008 that Sheriff Matheny and Ms. Jones submitted and received, and we're getting cost reimbursed on that also. So it would be my recommendation that if it's agreeable with the commission to reimburse the county commission the total $100,000 as outlined previously, and that reimbursement would go to the whole severance fund, municipalities as well as county commissions and other agencies, hospitals, EMSs, etc., nonprofits are all eligible to submit for reimbursement from the CARES Act, through the CARES Act portal.
All right. Questions, David? Patsy?
No, sir.
All right, Mr. Parker, then, from your perspective and from the staff position, can you speak with the mayor and the town clerk of Lumberport and Stonewood, who actually supplied for our request? Trying to help them get the funds that they're asking for.
Yeah, I mean, it's a matter of just applying through the CARES Act portal, unless the county commission wants to consider those two requests from the $100,000 block grant we currently have in place. That's a commission decision, most definitely.
Well, some of these from, I think you just need to verify that they are expenditures that can be reimbursed.
Why can't we make staff available to help these people?
Yeah.
We can, we will. We will. Yes.
To help them with
Smaller
the,
towns, this might be their first time or their second time. Or
Right.
At least I would hope that our staff is able to help them walk them through it
facilitate it, yep.
You most definitely will.
and make that available.
We can be reimbursed on, it's not going to do that, possibly getting Gina to look at ours as well.
Yeah, we're, through the CARES Act, we're also looking at reimbursement for, as I said, those two $15,000 expenditures. But we're looking at the expenditures I know we've made in law enforcement. Ms. Jones has been in discussion with the sheriff and the chief deputy about expenditures for emergency paid sick leave that was granted under the CARES Act. So we have some expenditures there we can get reimbursed for. As I know we had some expenditures at our 911 center as it relates to the emergency paid sick leave and the amended family medical leave that paid at 2/3 an individual's regular rate that are eligible for reimbursement. So we're in the process of doing that. The CARES Act, excuse me, you have to submit monthly for an expenditure time period. And the first expenditure, or the first submittal date is June the 15th, is when that has to be submitted for that time period. And you cannot go back after that. And then it's an ongoing monthly basis after that, that you submit for any eligible expenditures.
Besides the two municipalities, I think we ought to have staff revisit some of the others like West Milford, Salem, Shinston, and to just offer to see if maybe they should be able to, maybe we can walk them through also. They may have some legitimate expenditures. All right, so what's the pleasure then on that item? David, you want to form a motion? We're on number 11.
I know, I'm trying to. $100,000 is a block grant. We still are able to apply for these other.
Right.
Through these other sources,
Other
yes.
sources for the county.
Yes.
Just like we do.
So at this point, do we have to move this 100,000 into the general budget until we're applying to see where our shortfalls are going to be?
That $100,000 stays in the special fund that was created under the direction of the state auditor's office. That $100,000 will stay there until an authorized expenditure is either made directly from that account or reimbursed authorized expenditures that were made through co-severance in our case. The question that we need to decide today, in my opinion, is do we proceed on reimbursing some or all of that $100,000 to the county commission? And than submitting through the CARES Act for any balance, because that June 15th deadline is, we need to meet that, otherwise we'll not have.
Well, let me ask you, can you submit that 108,000 totally for the CARES Act?
We can,
And
yes.
keep the other 100,000 in that line item in escrow?
It's a matter of then having eligible expenditures within the time period that COVID-19 block grant covers.
But it covers till the end of
This calendar year.
this calendar year.
Yes,
So that's 6 months.
yes.
I say we sit on it and apply for all we can get
From CARES.
From CARES and see what we have available to permit and then use it as make up.
Did you hear that, Patsy?
So what I think we're gonna do is we're just gonna sit on it, eventually move it to full severance, right, David?
Yeah, I mean, if we can apply and we get 95 out of the CARES Act, then we'll just make up the difference. But if we don't get it, we'll still have it to make it up. I mean, we need 100,000 in full severance right now.
No.
No, not right now, no, huh? No, that budget revision took care of our expenditure issue. That's no problem. I mean, there's sufficient cash balance in the coal severance fund.
Let's just see where it all shakes out in the next 3 or 4 months.
All right,
That's all right.
got a motion?
That's
for that?
fine. It's, yeah, it's just a matter of, that 100,000. Hypothetically, I don't foresee this happening. If we would not have $100,000 of eligible expenditures between now and the end of the calendar year, that money would go back to the state.
Right, but it's no, but if we get the CARES Act money and get fully funded, it's the same. We can spend the state's 100,000 or we can spend the federal government's 100,000.
Yeah, you just can't spend them both on the same expenditure, yes.
And we're gonna work with the municipalities.
So
All right, so that's the
that way, if
motion.
there's an issue with municipalities or something down the road that we can help out, then let's just do it that way.
As long as, we just needed a decision so we knew which way to go on submitting through the CARES.
All right, David, make the motion.
Make a motion that we submit all our bills to CARES Act for reimbursement for COVID-19 and sit on the county block grant money for right now.
All right, we have a second by Patsy. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Item 12 is to review, discuss, and consider easement agreement with Zayo Group and/or CityNet regarding installation of fiber optic network on the Trails Park property. Mr. Parker.
Ms. Schaefer and I had some discussion with an individual from CityNet last week and earlier this week. They were wanting to try and get this wrapped up very soon, but we have not received any written request as it relates to this. As I understand it, Ms. Schaefer can correct me if I'm wrong, they're going to be, I think, from the Parkersburg area somewhere, coming down the North Bend Trail into Clarksburg, getting over to the Southern Trail and then heading back down towards Interstate 79. What all that entails, I do not know, but we don't have anything to present to the commission at this point. I don't know if you have any other information, Ms. Schaefer, at this point.
It's 4 lines. I can't remember how big they are, but in the beginning it was 3, and then they came back and they said, no, that's 4.
Are they wanting to put poles up and?
No, they want to bury it.
Buried.
Okay, now that's gonna take the rail authorities, West Virginia Rail Authority's approval anyway, if we do anything construction, right?
They pushed it back to us,
Who did?
the rail authority.
Rail Authority.
Of course, they,
Of course, there'll be a fee that if the commission wants, I don't know how much a fee associated with, you know, that fiber optic, or you can be a fee associated with them using your,
So-
property.
If, a public service district that's providing water and sewer, and there's a rails to trails, in the vicinity, so they could do the same thing, come back and say, hey, we'd like to use the rails to trails in order to facilitate water and sewer to unserved areas.
That would be correct.
All right?
And do we own everything they want to put line on?
The part that we own is approximately 12 miles.
They're working, when I say they, CityNet representative has been working with the land department of CSX about getting, from the end of the North Bend Trail into Clarksburg that CSX currently owns, except for there's a 1,200 or 1,500 foot section that is privately owned, that CSX sold to a private individual. And according to that representative from CityNet, CSX has no problem with the easement. In fact, mentioned about CityNet or this other firm buying the property. And of course, that's some of the property that the county commission has been trying to purchase for 4 years, 5 years,
Yes.
that we have a grant in place for right now. That CityNet back, you know, when they switched the department, they personnel in that department, they changed their idea. So the county commission was working, or representatives, the staff representatives on behalf of the county commission was talking to legal counsel about proceeding or starting the process, or at least correspondence with CSX about eminent domain. But if they're willing to sell to two other private individuals, I don't know why they wouldn't be willing to sell this point to the county commission. So we're trying to get those contacts made.
But we have nothing, we have no plan in place at this point presented.
No,
So we'll just make it part of today's record.
I wouldn't recommend proceeding at this point until we have something in writing. And if, you know, another meeting's necessary, we'll let you know.
We'll, just make it part of today's record, guys. David?
Well, we need more than that. We need to authorize Charlotte to go ahead and work an agreement, one that they do put it in, the one they're gonna make it exactly like it was.
Yeah. Oh, I'm
Well,
sure of that.
we haven't seen any documents or any plan.
I've seen, they've sent me a map as to where they want to go.
They haven't,
I've seen the agreement they made with North Bend.
Which was much less.
Yeah, but they're only going 2,000 feet on
Right.
theirs.
Right.
We're talking about 12 miles. They're basically wanting to know what we want.
all right.
If you want $500 a mile on whatever you want, is what Charlotte needs to know that.
2,000 feet's, just a little more than a half mile.
And they got $500 for it.
So we could get $500 for every 2,000 feet if you want it. That's what we have to tell Charlotte. What does she want to negotiate?
David?
They buy that land, CSX, and donate it to us.
That'd be great.
Oh, that'd be great. That's a
Yeah,
negotiation.
that would be good.
But if not,
Yeah.
which is a great idea you had, but you also know what you're asking her to do. You're asking her to come Mount Everest.
Well, I mean, really, I mean, if they buy it, then if they give it to her, it's a write-off.
Yeah.
We'll approach them with that idea or
All
other.
right.
You know, that'll be the first, and then we'll bring back anything
Yeah.
to the county commission for final approval.
But I will say, don't hold up getting fiber optic cable into this company. Yeah.
No, as soon as we get discussion and a, you know, agreement in, if we'll call a special, it'd be a special meeting if need be, but.
Okay.
All right.
And you're gonna give them a 12-mile shot straight through you, and they only charge $500 for 2,000 feet, which seems awful cheap to me.
Very cheap.
That is,
Well, they got some other work done too.
Yes.
yeah, they did some work on
They
it.
got quite a bit of work done.
Okay, so I'm gonna guess between $3,000 and $5,000 a mile.
one shot or yearly?
The greed factor wants a yearly, but.
You get one shot, will bet.
Yeah, I mean, a maintenance fee of, 12,000 a year.
You're not gonna get that.
All right.
Depends on how hard they wanna.
We'll do some talking to the appropriate representatives and bring it back.
All right. So today we'll just, motion make it part of today's record.
And negotiate.
All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. Item 13 and 14 are related. We have a letter of resignation from Luann Bush from the Clarksburg Harrison Regional Housing Authority. And 14 is that the board has asked us to consider the appointment of Roger Diaz to serve in the unexpired term, which ends 7/24/24. What's the pleasure? Need a motion to accept Luann Bush's resignation.
Accept Luann's resignation and to appoint Roger Dias to her open seat.
Did you say both of them? All right. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, item 15 is commissioners' comments. Patsy?
Yeah, I guess.
May I say something before you guys get
Yeah.
started? Just wanted to make an announcement on, and I want everybody on Zoom to know too, on June 8th, we will be having the assessors appraisers knocking on doors again. We need to keep up with our 3-year plan for the 2020 year. We put something in the paper, we're gonna do something on TV, but just want to let everybody know that, so we're getting calls. That yes, we are back out there. The guys will be wearing a mask. They'll keep their social distance, and just gotta ask the question, but we can't fall behind with this.
All right.
Other thing, I just received a email. The National Association of Counties, NACO, is pleased to grant Harrison County a 2020 Achievement Award for its program titled Access to Assessing, a Unique Approach in Individual Personal Property Assessments and More in the category of Human Services. Congratulations to everyone involved in developing this innovative program. Your hard work will yield positive results for Harrison County residents.
Congratulations.
What that is, guys, is our satellite program where we're going to the senior citizens and doing the assessment and the tax collection. Robert, the tax office has worked well with us, and we've done this. And Christina decided to apply for the Achievement Award, and we received it.
Good.
So it's now read that evening.
Good. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you for the time.
Congratulations.
All right. Back to commissioners' comments. Patsy?
Yeah, I have a question that I really don't know the answer to, Willie. If I buy your property, why does GIS not update immediately? Why does it stay in your name for a year almost?
Well, there should be a sales listing form that's completed and,
Takes a little time for the process. I mean, I don't.
no, go ahead, yeah.
And Rocky can speak to.
You guys know the process, but as I understand the process, the deed and sales listing forms filed with Ms. Thomas's office, that information is communicated to the assessor's office, and whatever that process is, I really don't know. And then GIS personnel or Rocky's personnel then update the maps. Sometimes it is a sufficient amount, or what I would think would be an extended time period. I don't know how long that process should take.
Well, I mean, I think it goes to Patty, and then Patty works with it, and I mean, you can speak to your.
She has to do the sales questionnaire, people have to fill it out.
It's not as easy as.
Sometimes they don't do that quite properly, so the guys or the real estate girls have to get back with them and get all the details straight before we can get that issue.
I mean,
So even though I've made the purchase, we can't just key it in that I take Willie out and put Patsy in.
no, I mean, it's like this Elliott Thrasher property. I was doing some, I mean, until recently, and I don't know if Mike or whoever does that on the changed on the file, it was still in Elliott Thrasher's name, even though we purchased it last year.
And it is because. Okay.
The, Regino property.
Yeah.
Dr. Regino.
Yeah.
That's been almost 2 years now.
I don't know why that takes so long at times.
Let me ask you something wrong. If I buy Willie's property, but I don't pay the taxes, does Willie's name go in the paper or does mine? Even though I bought it, your name's in the
No,
paper.
but in my office, it's in your name.
Yeah.
But it hasn't circled through the,
Yeah, in the tax office, they pull their records from the assessor's files. So in the tax, as I understand, in the tax office, it would still be in previous owner's name, so their name would be in the paper. So that makes it a little bit, yeah, if I see my name in paper, I don't owe the taxes. I mean, it's not my problem, it's not my property, and you may not know that there's a back tax still due for whatever reason, and your name's not in the paper. So it could lead to an issue possibly, yes.
Now, we have
Yes.
worked with the title attorneys and also the real estate offices in order to let them know let the people know that this happens. So, you know, it's been a slow process, but they're getting to it, so people do understand that they need to pay attention to the previous owner's tax record and see. But they know what they have to pay, and we're trying to get those to, you know, the former owner take care of the first half, and then the new owner take care of the second half, and that's what keeps it up to date.
that's always normally done at closing. Your taxes are prorated at closing. and the taxes are
Yeah,
paid.
unless there's
a private.
Yeah, unless there's a private sale that somebody doesn't get an attorney or the attorney drops the ball or.
All right, pass it.
And Rocky, couple things. One, I want an update on Coons Run, please, and Hepzibah. And two, can you let everybody know that, tomorrow, they can't hear me, Willie, because you're sitting on top of that thing, that if Bionutrition is gonna receive a check for $7,500 tomorrow from Lockheed Martin, if anybody wants to show up for that.
All right.
But anyway,
Anything else?
Coons Run, Hepzibah?
I'll have to get with the attorneys and staff from those PSDs and get that process back on track. I'm sure was derailed. Well, I know it was derailed.
David?
Oh, one more thing, Ron, I'm sorry, I do have one more thing.
That's all right. Go right ahead.
This here bill for $34,300 for new courthouse phone system, I'm not asking that, not only am I not signing it, I'd like it to be an agenda item that we have your presentation of why we're spending this money.
Okay, I mean, when we had our meeting with the IT department, that was one of the topics we went over, is because the servers are end of life and we have to replace those in the software. It's not replacing the phones, it's replacing that makes it work. The servers that make it work and the software that makes our system work. But we can have an agenda item at our next meeting.
So what you're telling me is our server has, how do we know that it's outlived its life? Is it going down?
I have to rely on our IT department that works with our vendors to handle those areas. I mean, it's been.
I mean, we know CityNet's going to tell us it's going down, will we? Do our guys think it's going down?
Yes, I mean, it's been.
We've had problems with it?
Over 7 years that I know of.
Have we had a problem with it?
Yes, they've had problems with the servers, yes, redundancy. So it's a matter of, I can schedule the next meeting and have IT and CityNet here.
No, I'm just asking, I mean, this is an expensive cost, or I haven't heard one, I mean, I haven't heard anybody complain about anything. And people complain about everything here, so why haven't I complained about this?
Yeah, they sometimes complain about this phone system, my phone reprogrammed in the middle of the call, or, because I've had that happen. They may or may not be aware of the issue because it's the things behind phone set of what's driving the system. The hardware behind the phone system, or the phone set, and then the software that makes it operate.
You don't have to mention that. Right, you
All
gotta
right,
sign
you
it.
want an agenda item?
Yeah, you gotta sign it.
Pardon?
You're gonna have to sign this one. It doesn't have to mention that.
All right. Any other questions, Pat?
Yes, sir.
David? None? Yes?
The only thing that, I'd like to say is, I've been working with, Susan over in, the election area, counting, processing ballots. And, she has an excellent group of people that are doing an excellent job, and I've enjoyed being over there with them, and they take what they do very serious, and, I've been impressed with the way they take the job. I want the public to know that the people over there take their voting rights very, very seriously. They try to make sure that everything is done 100% or more to protect you as voters. So if there's any doubt, I can say that I would like to put your mind at ease on mail-in ballots, because these people are doing an excellent job. And I would like to see the public continue with mail-in ballots. That's it.
All right. Anything else? No. My only thing is, I'm sure we've each have received a number of calls reference active estates that are still open. And I think by statute, Susan, your office, the people that's involved in executor or administrator over these estates is still active. That hasn't been closed out properly. So a lot of people have either their name has been in the paper yesterday and coming up, or they've gotten letters, and there is a couple options that available. If you do nothing and don't adhere to the show cause date, then the county commission can approve an administrative to close it administratively. So don't worry about the sheriff's office coming to pick you up or any of that. But in good faith, if you have anything that you can close the estate, you should. But if you do nothing, the worst case is that it'll come before the commission on those particular dates, the show cause dates, and Susan's office will prepare a list for the county commission to consider administratively closing it. Anything else, Susan, on that? All right.
It's just that we have to advertise in the paper.
Yep.
I mean, I was hoping we have to schedule them all for a hearing.
Right, and that's by statute, right? All right, other than that,
Anything, Sheriff?
you're opening the door there.
Anything, Gary? Sheriff?
All right.
Cover?
I just want to thank
Thank David.
For his kind words.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. All right, let's have that magic motion to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Aye. We're out of here.
Let's shut it down so you can back it up in down there, right?
Yeah, you know, I didn't even know how to get to the, I went up there after I got here